welcome back to the channel. October is just around the corner and it's time to set up my bullet journal ready for the upcoming month. This month I'm doing a pumpkin theme and you can see some of the supplies I used on the screen right now, and I also have everything linked in the description. I know that this definitely isn't like a super original theme, and this is actually my second time doing a pumpkin theme, but I really wanted to do some cute little pastel pumpkins, so I used some light grayish minty shades, some yellow and orange shades, and also just a little bit of brown. I began creating the cover page by drawing 3 different colored and differently shaped pumpkins. At first I had some trouble with the orange pen as the color didn't seem to come out, but it started working a bit better later on. By the way, the Orange Acrylograph pen is a brand new one. It came with the latest Archer&Olive fall launch. I wanted this theme to be really soft and light, so I only colored that orange pumpkin using a light orange, almost yellow calliograph pen, but I left the other pumpkins uncolored and only did the outlines. I added the stems to the pumpkins and then drew vines and some leaves on the sides next to the pumpkins. And finally I wrote October under the pumpkins, and then the cover page was done. We are moving on to my next spread, which is for monthly planning. I started by writing the header at the top of the first page with a fine liner, and then I created the calendar below it. First I drew horizontal lines for the dates using a light orange brush pen, and then I made the actual calendar grid with an orange acrylograph pen. Above the calendar I wrote the first letter of each day with a darker mint green pen. October starts on a Sunday and the calendar turned out to be a bit of an awkward shape, so I decided to draw a few small pumpkins under the calendar to fill the empty space there. I drew one of each different shape and color again and added some leaves in between them. After that, I wrote the numbers of the days in the calendar. Under the calendar, I created a small section for my October goals. I'm planning to write my 3 most important monthly goals here, and also added these progress bars next to them to track my progress during the month. One last thing I added was my color-coded cleaning schedule. So under each day of the week, I have a room or an area that I want to clean on that day. And when I've cleaned the area, I draw a small circle in the corresponding color. And this way I can also use my calendar as a cleaning tracker. On the next page, I created a section for my weekly planning. At first I wrote the header in orange, but a little later I actually changed the color to light yellow. I used this small space to plan household chores that don't necessarily repeat every week. I also plan things like video schedules and other similar tasks here. Next to the weekly plan, I drew 2 boxes, one for planning for this month and the other for planning for the next month. In the box for this month's planning, I usually write down some important tasks that I want to do during the month, but haven't scheduled for a specific week or day. I left some space between these boxes so I could decorate it with some pumpkins again. At the bottom of the page, I was supposed to create a tracker for my weekly habits, but when I was editing this video, I noticed that I had written weekly tasks instead of weekly habits, so I'll just have to go back and fix it later. I'm not quite sure yet which weekly habits I'm going to choose, so I left those empty for now. On the next page, I decided to create a weekly schedule using color blocking. I don't know about you, but during weekdays, I often tend to think that I don't have time for anything beyond work and essential household chores, even though there are hours and hours available during the week. So this calendar is like a little reminder for that. Also, I made a schedule for doing chores to make sure that they actually get done. Usually I try to get cleaning and other household tasks done right after work so I can have my evenings free. I only created the schedule from Monday to Friday because I also try to keep my weekends unscheduled. I created this schedule off camera because I thought it would be a bit boring to watch me color in the boxes, but you can see a bit of the schedule in the background. And all those white spaces are extra time that I can use however I want to. On the page next to this one, I created my daily habit tracker. I wrote the header in the light yellow color, just like on the previous page, and below it I started drawing boxes for each habit. This month I decided to track 9 different habits that I want to do daily. I usually don't have this many habits to track each month, but recently I've been sleeping on some of my routines, so I added a few new habits here. I first used a light orange brush pen to create backgrounds for each habit, and then I drew the boxes with an Orange Acrylograph pen. I crossed out the dates from September and November, and then I noticed that I had drawn the lines in the wrong place in the boxes, so I had to make some corrections. Once the boxes were finally ready, I wrote down all 9 habits I'm tracking this month, which are eating healthy, evening bullet journaling, tidying up the kitchen, morning pages, morning routine, doing chores, flossing, checking expenses, and avoiding spending money on things I haven't budgeted for in advance. Then I wrote the first letter of the day of the week in the boxes, and at the bottom of the page I drew a few more pumpkins. I accidentally used a different color for one of the pumpkins than before, so I decided to draw the vines in light yellow, but I think the drawing turned out pretty cute this way too. The next spread is my October budget and expenses. I've been really into budgeting lately, and I've been even thinking about making some budgeting videos, but we'll see if I get around to it at some point. It would be interesting to hear if you do monthly budgeting and if you'd be interested in watching videos about me doing my budget. Let me know in the comments under this video. On the first page, I created the actual budget for this month. I started by drawing 2 boxes, one for the needs budget and one for the wants budget. I drew the boxes so that the first box was more on the right side and the box under it was a bit more on the left side. And then I decorated the titles by drawing pumpkins behind them. I have created categories for all my expenses, and at the moment I have 15 different categories, and I always create my budget by categories. So the first column is for the category title, the next one is for the budgeted amounts, then we have the actual spending, and in the last column I write how much is left of the budget for that category at the end of the month. My categories in the needs section are groceries, household items, utilities, transportation, health, pets, and home renovation. And in my wants section, I have hobbies, entertainment, home decor, beauty, clothes, eating out/takeout, gifts, and travel. Under the budget boxes, I also created a small tracker. I usually like to do a check-in once a week and see how much I've spent on food and how much I've spent on the whole wants category, because these two categories are where I typically go over budget. In this tracker, I'm going to draw a horizontal line to mark down the percentage of the budget used during that week, and I also have a color code here to separate the 4 weeks. Next we have my expense tracker, where I write down all my expenses for the month. Along with these budgeting pages in my bullet journal, I also use Google Sheets, which is really good for calculating and tracking my spending. However, I don't really use my computer that often, and I tend to forget to track my expenses on Google Sheets. But since I use my bullet journal daily, it makes sense to have the tracker here. This tracker is really just a large table with columns for the category number, expense description, date, and amount. This expense tracker usually doesn't have enough space for all my monthly expenses, so when I run out of space, I tape another similar tracker on top of it. So that is it for the budgeting trackers. I drew a few more pumpkins on the side, and then I moved on to the last spread of this setup. The final spread is the first weekly spread for October. Since October 1st is a Sunday this year, I decided to include it in this week as well, and drew 8 boxes with a brown pen. In this setup, I didn't really use black at all, which is nice because it makes the theme look really light and soft. I wrote the day of the week in each box with a light mint colored acrylograph pen, and then added the day's number in the lower right corners. There was just enough space under the header for a few more pumpkins. Although my pumpkin doodles were pretty much the same throughout this setup, if you want, you can add variation by drawing pumpkins in different sizes, or maybe changing some of the colors, or of course leaving out the pumpkins and only using the color palettes. It's been a while since I last did a bullet journal setup on camera, and this one took a bit more time than I expected, but I'm glad I got this video uploaded because I really like this theme and I hope you do too. The one last thing I added to this page was the weekly tasks list on the right side, and then of course I drew some more pumpkins into the bottom right corner. Now let's see the final flip through of my October 2023 bullet journal setup. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!